Hey, what's going on, everybody? You know how we get into it, so let's just go. Today's topic is going to be titled It's Always Our Fault. So let's just go. Of course, I'm still absorbing all the results of the election and everything, and it's going to take a while to really get all the data and to really evaluate it. So I'm sure I'll come back and have some more things to say later as things come in. But preliminarily, right now, I'm sure all y'all here, and I don't know, for me, every election cycle, it seems no matter who, what, when, where, why, how, if something goes wrong for the Democratic Party, it's always black people's fault, right? It is always our fault. We didn't turn out enough. We didn't do enough of this. There's so many people turning away and da 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 da. We didn't get out the right to vote. And I just want to unpack a lot of this stuff. It's like, because I just think, like, what's going on here? So first of all, like, just based on the sheer numbers, it's just patently false. If you look at the amount of support that black people give Democrats in every election, it's never below 85%, ever. Now, black men recently have dipped to like 79%, but black women are always above 90%. You know what I'm saying? Cheers to black women. But we are the most solid, loyal voting bloc of any group to any party in the country. Period. Don't let anybody tell you. There is no group of people that is voting anywhere near in 90% mass for anything in this country. So to suggest that, like, black people don't have an agenda, that black people don't have things that they vote for consistently, like, that's a lie. But yet, you notice that's something that's stated every single time, right? When they're talking about the black vote and they're talking about elections and talking about who's to blame and talking about lead, like, no, like, it just doesn't air itself out in that way. If you look at the statistics, look at over time, it's very, very, very consistent. There's a small dip off, you know what I'm saying, with black men, but no, it's just not the case. But you know who is to blame all the time? And but black people only make up 12% of the electorate, right? So all minorities, all non-white people in this nation, I think, now granted they make up a larger percentage of population, but in terms of the voting population, white people this election cycle made up 71% of the electorate. 71%. So that is over 2/3. Black people making up 12%. If you combined all other non-white people, that's still well over 2 times the amount of voting power. So, duh, if you're going to say anyone had control over this election and whose fault it is, it can only be white people. Even if every single non-white person voted together, we would still need almost half of the white population to still vote in our favor to even have a chance. And so I feel like we need to, like, take a step back and, like, what are they saying to us? Like, if every cycle, even though statistically and on its face it's moronic to sit there and blame black people or any other minority for any outcome in this election, in this nation, but they're basically, what are they telling us by saying every single time it's our fault? What they're basically telling us is that it's baked into the cake that white people will never vote on the proper side of history, right? It'll always be maybe a 50-50 if you're lucky. But what they're telling us is that the same 47% of the people that voted to cede from this nation and Confederacy is baked into the cake. That group has not changed. The racist people, the Confederate people, the people that want all the ban, the same people that want the Muslim bans today, they ain't changed. They great grandpappy and them are still the same 47% of people that still would rather see black people in chains still vote together. And when they say, like, black people, brown people, it's your fault, they're bypassing that 50% of the nation that is apparently always going to vote for white supremacy. Right? And so I feel like that is inherently the issue, that, like, half of white people are untouchable. Right? Isn't that what they're saying? That, like, if you could even possibly in your mind rationalize blaming less than 30% of the electorate for the outcomes, you're basically saying that the 71%, some of that is already baked into the cake and it's gone. To not even enter into the conversation and say, like, hey, y'all are immovable. There's no way we can't even talk about this segment of white America that could somehow be convinced. So that's just attacking it from the numbers perspective. Like it's purely them blaming it, but like there's no one accepting blame when they're always putting it on us. Even if 100% of black men voted, it wouldn't have made as much of a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, so let's not do that and presume that every person has to be a monolith. What they're basically saying is that like it's minorities against everybody else. In saying that analysis, they're basically admitting that it should be team minority because it's team white. So they're presuming that like we're gonna do what they doing in order, because otherwise that argument wouldn't hold any weight, right? It wouldn't hold any weight if they weren't presuming that, okay, this is clearly the party that's going to like champion your rights. And if y'all aren't going to champion your rights in full mass, why should we? I think like that's literally like what they're saying in their mind. And I think we want to get even further out into this. It's about what's acceptable, right? What is acceptable in America? And some of the triaging I've heard, from some of the more liberal people, or not real liberal people, but some of the reporters, is like, oh, well, Democrats are too far left. They're too far left. They're too woke. You know what I'm saying? They're like they just went a little far for the average American. And I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt on some of this because you know what I'm saying? Hopefully I'm not canceled for this. I am a complete supporter of trans rights. Complete supporter. I do take issue with the sports thing in certain contexts. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do take an issue with like if someone grew up with the chromosomes to be a male and they went through puberty and they did the transition post-puberty, I do have an issue with that person participating in sports with people that were born, cis women. I do. And if that makes me a bigot, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like that is fair. I don't. But I feel like there's some intersection, right? I feel like there's like I can support people's rights to be who they are and transition and celebrate them. But I also can feel that like, does that mean I'm not in support of trans rights? Like, does that mean that if me not supporting that aspect, does that mean I am an enemy of the trans rights movement as according to the trans rights movement? So with that, I can kind of understand where some people are coming from in that space. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I do think the Democratic Party needs to do some work in that space about allowing things in the tent about people that like, it's not an all or nothing ally or not. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we separate everything into black or white a little bit too much. And there are certain things that are lines in the sand, right? But there are some things I feel like you don't want to isolate some of your allies. But on the same accord, the notion that in America, that it is more extreme for trans rights than it is for the party that says, let's do a Muslim ban, let's round up Latinos, Jews will not replace us. The fact that those extreme sentiments rest comfortably and are somehow less offensive to people than something about expanding rights. So it's like, I feel like that's just my main thing. It's like, even if you disagree specifically with like the trans movement and some of its, applications, the spirit of that movement is inclusiveness. The spirit of that movement is equity and creating voices for people that didn't used to have a voice. Now, you might disagree with the applications of that, but the spirit of that is good. The spirit of that is to try and be more inclusive and understanding. So to me, it is really a shame in this nation. And we need to have a reality that like that spirit is somehow more offensive to people than the spirit of hate and division that has existed forever. All these extremes with the KKK, the skinheads, the anti-Semitic movements, and all these things. A big swath of America said, that's okay. I might not agree with it wholeheartedly, but in comparison to DEI, in comparison to Black Lives Matter, in comparison to trans rights, I'm more comfortable with this. And that needs to be the argument. That needs to be the argument. Put the extremes on both sides and say, okay, yeah, you might not agree with trans rights, but you are saying that you're okay with this. Change the paradigm, because that's not okay. Like, that's not okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so we need to put the blame where it is. That there's a large faction, and sadly, white people represent the majority of the vote in America, so they're the people that are exemplifying this the most. That they are more comfortable with all the things that oppress every minority group in America, rather than things that might give some equity and some voice in the space to things that they might not understand and agree with. That is the issue here, and that is where the blame is. You are more comfortable with hate than you are with inclusion. Own it. Own it. And let's put the blame on the right people. Until next time.